Hey everybody, welcome to Etrailer.com. I'm Bobby, and today we're taking a look at the CURT 2-bike platform rack here on our 2020 Jeep Gladiator. So if you guys are looking for a way of getting 2 bikes to your destination, well, this could be a half-decent way of doing so. Now, personally, I think this rack has a few shortcomings, and we're going to be breaking that down here in this video, but it's still going to be a really nice way if you're looking for something with just a little bit more higher weight capacity than you might be seeing on some other carriers. Why I say that? Well, we have a 130-pound weight capacity overall for both of our bikes, putting us at a 65-bike solo bike capacity, which can be very nice for our e-bikes, right? Those are already starting to get up a little bit higher past that standard 60-pound weight capacity. So this would probably be the reason I think a lot of us are going to be getting it. And what I like about it, though, it actually is pretty beefy. You know, if you're comparing this to something like the Yakima on-ramp, which gives you a very nice ramp to actually get your e-bikes on your bike carrier, that'd be something I'm comparing this to, right? Because that has a 66-pound weight capacity rating. And what's nice about this guy, it actually is bigger. It's a little bit more robust. Going to be handling your bigger tires a little bit better, I should say. Now, to that end, though, you know, if you're comparing this to something like the Rocky Mounts Monorail 2, I think that system just starts to shine a lot higher. If you're kind of getting rid of that extra 5 pounds, this rack really doesn't have too much more going for it in that regards. But we're going to be breaking that down here in just a little bit. I'll let you guys be the final deciding factor on if this is the right rack for you. Like I said, we are going to have a 65-pound weight capacity per bike, and because we have a front tire hold system here, we're going to be a-okay to throw on a variety of different bikes, like a carbon frame bike, because there's no frame contact. And to that end, with no frame contact, if we do have anything like a women's bike, step-through bikes, or kids' bikes, going to have no trouble actually clamping onto them. As long as we have that one good front wheel, we don't have to worry about any kind of irregular frames or anything like that, which is really, really nice. But talking about these arms themselves, they are just going to be a little smaller than you might be used to seeing on some of your other racks. So pretty thin. And one thing I don't really like, they don't really have a good resistance. So kind of have to always be in contact with it. Makes it a little harder to kind of watch it. Now the button itself too is more of a lever system, really. Kind of just press on there to release it. And it just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as ergonomic, as easy to use at a variety of other bikes that I'm used to having. On the M2, you are seeing a little cable lock. Now this guy is very, very thin. Probably the thinnest cable lock I think I've seen put on a bike rack. Now, is it going to do the job? Yeah, it's going to keep honest people honest, right? Which is great. Now, of course, later on, we can always grab our own cable locks and stuff like that. But if you're asking me, would I like to see just a little bit more heft to that lock capability? That way I know it's nice and secure. Talking to our way here to the front cradle, you guys can see this guy, a little bit wider, got that 18C standard groove going on there. Now this cradle's pretty decent. It is in there solid, but let's look at our bike that's actually in place here. You can see already we're having just a little bit of overhang here, and that's something that I'm not too happy about. I just think this is a little bit too much set towards the end of our platform, and especially if you have a bigger, wider bike, or tires, I'm sorry, you're going to start impacting that and seeing that a little bit more. So that's one thing, again, where I'm like, I wish that was just a little bit more back set. Now, what I do like, though, we're not going to be worried about our bike walking off that back end. Even if you do have a longer wheelbase and you start having that back end just getting closer towards that end, this being so rounded here towards the back and really doing a good job of supporting our bike is hopefully going to keep it in line. Now, talking about that last cradle, we do have an adjustable cradle here. Just simply slides around on our tray there. Now, we do have just a little ratcheting strap. All we got to do, simply slot that in just like so. Has a little eye hole too to make it easier to pull it through, which is nice. And I actually do like this little rubber topper on the top. Nice that I can get that between my rim and my strap, and that way we're not damaging it and scraping it. Now, one thing I do actually like about this, though, we actually are going to have tilting capabilities. And even here on the Gladiator, it's going to be nice to drop that tailgate down, start getting easier access to some of our heavier items. To do that, we have this little lever right here. It has a kind of pull pin that you hit the pull in as well, and once that's activated, you can rotate it towards yourself. That's going to allow this to drop. Now, of course, if you got 130 pounds on here, brace yourself a little bit. Don't want all that weight dropping on you really quick. Could either damage yourself or your rack. But now that it's open, I can bring myself around here. open up my tailgate, and now I still have access. I can slide out all my coolers, get my gear right here, have it set. Could be nice to service your bikes too as they are in your carrier. So I really do like that we have the capability of getting full access. And you know, we're not just limited to our Gladiator. We probably have a couple other vehicles at home. If we do have a 2-inch hitch as well, nice that we're going to gain access to those hatches. To walk this up, all I need to do is support it and walk it. Remember again, already with just my one bike on here, it is a little heavy. Make sure we're bracing ourselves. That way we have no issue. Now, putting this up, we are actually going to have a couple little caveats to keep in mind, or maybe just one, but the big thing is sliding this guy to the end of your bar underneath your platform tray and locking it in. Otherwise, as I go to fold this up later, there's no resistance on here. And this can end up flopping around, making contact with the back of your vehicle, and otherwise just being kind of annoying. So let's just trap it down in there, and that way it stays nice and secure. Well, it's not going to take me too long to actually get the bike off. To do that, I'm just going to start by removing my rear strip here. Simply pressing in on that lever allows me to take that strap out. All I got to do, push it through, get it to the other side. I actually do kind of like how large those straps are. I could see this being a little bit better for maybe like your fat bike tires as well, which is great. So that's pretty decent to see. And all I got to do now, press in on that lever, release my arm, get it out to the side, and now I can simply take my bike and grab it off. Now, the one thing I'll say too, you can see it kind of wants to rotate forward already, and I'm not really touching it. That's, again, that front cradle kind of being so close to that end, it has almost a drop off, and now my bike wants to leave. So with this, let's make sure we're being really careful and supporting our bike. That way it goes nowhere. But all we got to do, lift it off and walk it out, and we're all ready to ride. So that's my one little caveat with it. Again, it seems to walk itself off, which is never too fun. Now, mounting it, the only thing you really have to watch out for is going to be that rear strap, right? We set our arm just like you're seeing it today, set our bike in place on our front cradle, walk it back, and a lot of times what you got to end up doing, dropping that wheel, picking it back up, set it in place, and then securing it, which is pretty nice. So, you know, I like the versatility of the rack. It's nice that I have that back cradle to shift around, but you know, kind of counterintuitive to the versatility of it, we are limited by that front cradle. So that's one thing I'll say. Now, a couple of important dimensions to keep in mind is going to be our clearance here to the very end of our carriage, and of course, how much length we're adding to our vehicle. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Looks like our handle here actually probably going to be our biggest issue. So I'm actually going to get that measurement really quick, and that's putting us at 21 1/4 of an inch right there to the end of that handle. Now, again, that's going to be a pretty good size. I don't think we're going to be too worried about it. Just keep in mind, as those front wheels go up, the rear will go down, and so will your hitch-mounted accessories. So, again, though, that's a very decent height. Don't think we're going to have too much issue. Now, the Gladiator is pretty long, though. So, like I said, if you find yourself on a very steep incline, doing a little craziness on it, just be careful. That way we don't end up damaging our bikes. But taking a look here from the rear of the bumper today to the very end of our carrier, that's going to tell me how much length that we are adding on here today. And so from the very back to the end here of my carrier, that's putting me at 37 3/4 of an inch. Now, I will say my hitch is sitting right there on the end of my Jeep today. I love that I was actually able to get access here with that tailgate. However, that is a pretty decent size being added to the back here of your vehicle. You can see really how long that rear shank is. Definitely adding a lot of length, but hopefully we can cut that down and maybe pull this in the garage, or at the very least, give ourselves some maneuverability when we want to park. To do that, instead of tilting away, I'm going to utilize this handle. Once again, pushing in, pulling it down, and rotating it towards my vehicle now. And that way, it stays nice and locked in. In this position, you're not going to have too much rattle. I'm seeing just a little bit here, and that's actually coming from our inner assembly. However, I don't think you're really going to be hearing it, especially here in the Gladiator, as it is all the way in the back. But let's see now from the rear of our bumper to the end of our carrier. That's putting us right at about 16 1/4 of an inch. So almost half of that length getting shaved down. Love to see that. Hopefully now we can get this in the garage. Although the Gladiator, very, very long vehicle, I think we're probably are going to have issues. And to that end, we're probably going to have to take this off quite often if we actually want to pull it inside. And speaking of that, it is about 45 pounds, so it's not the lightest carrier out there. Definitely not the heaviest, because it is made of aluminum as well. And to that end, if you guys are having trouble with your Gladiator, trying to pull it on and off, one thing I might recommend is going to be the Etrailer hitch pin alignment collar. And if you guys want to move your way down here to the shank, all that simply does is block right here. We set our carrier in, we take our collar, we shove it up to the very end here of our hitch receiver, tighten it up, and that way, every time I take this on and off, it's going to find that position, making it a lot easier to actually get my alignment tool in, which is great. And speaking of that, of course, we do have our 2-inch shank here today, held in by our 2-inch hitch receiver. We just have a little spring clip and pin actually holding our carrier to our vehicle. Where the real magic is happening is right here on the end of our vehicle. And all we got to do, tighten this up, righty-tighty, and then, of course, lock it in place. And what that's going to do is actually lock this and it's pushing a little ball inside there, bringing this all in line to one system, making for a smoother ride for ourselves. And as you guys can see, I'm shaking the entirety of our Gladiator here today. That means all that shake and play is gone, making for a nicer, smoother ride for ourselves, our bike rack, but especially our bikes. So, and of course, we do have a little locking core there. That'll be key-like to our locking cores on the end of our platform arms, making it that much easier to secure our bikes to our carrier, and of course, our carrier to our vehicle. So I do like to see that. One thing I'll say about this as well, we actually don't have a way of changing around our platforms. They are fixed, and in my mind, in a platform rack, that's really a pretty bad thing to have. You know, they're going to have very similar sizes of bikes. They're going to be interacting, and a lot of times you have to offset that handlebar and those the seat posts. Otherwise, they just run right into each other, and they don't really play well. Now, luckily for us, we were finding a couple ones that did fit pretty a-okay, but you never know, especially depending on at home, right? We might have very similar bikes. So again, it just doesn't seem like it's that great of a rack, in my opinion. One thing I would look at is going to be that Rocky Mounts Monorail 2-bike platform rack. It's pretty much everything you're seeing here, just a little bit better in my mind, and we can actually add on a third bike carrier to it. We can get an extension for it, which is great. So in my mind, you're just getting a lot more bang for your buck and a way better rack if you're just looking at that one. But otherwise, you know, this is still great for that 65 pounds per bike. A platform rack just doesn't have that right now unless you're looking at that Yakima on-ramp. And again, it's just a little too small. So I really like the size of this guy. And again, I'll leave all these decisions up to you. Hopefully you guys got a pretty good idea of how it's working here on our Gladiator. One last little thing we want to look at while it's folded up here. Definitely not interacting too bad with our taillights. That's something I like to see. Actually staying well within, almost right there on that taillight, which is great. So everybody's still going to see everything. But our backup camera, definitely going to lose a lot of that visibility. Unfortunately, probably going to run into that issue with almost any carrier out there. So it is just kind of what it is. Otherwise, though, guys, I think that about does it for our look here today at the CURT 2-bike platform rack here on our 2020 Jeep Gladiator. I'm Bobby. Thank you for watching.